Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey proves brute force is a lie. As Matt Damon's Odysseus faces a monstrous Cyclops and hypnotic Sirens, the film reveals his deadliest enemy wasn't mythical, it was his own mind. Long before this psychological thriller, ancient Stoics revered this flawed king as the ultimate architect of self-control. Let's decode his blueprint, turning classical Greco-Roman struggles into your most powerful weapon for modern discipline. The ancient Stoic philosophers, thinkers like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, were masters of mental toughness. They built an entire operating system for the human mind, one designed to thrive in a world of chaos and uncertainty. But when they looked for examples of their ideals in action, they didn't always look to a perfect, theoretical sage. They often looked back centuries before their time to a deeply flawed, brilliantly clever, and long-suffering man, Odysseus, the legendary king of Ithaca. This might seem strange. Odysseus lived long before Stoicism was even founded. He was a warrior, a trickster, a man of violent passions and profound grief, far from the unshakable sage we might imagine. Yet the founder of Stoicism, Zeno of Citium, was fascinated by Homer's epics, even writing 5 books on the ethical lessons they contained. Later thinkers influenced by Stoicism would hold up Odysseus as a powerful example of how a wise person behaves, a man who governs his own mind long before a storm ever appears on the horizon. They saw his epic journey home from the Trojan War not as a simple adventure story, but as the ultimate case study in self-mastery. They saw his struggles with monsters, sorceresses, and his own ego as a grand metaphor for the internal war we all fight every day, the war between our rational mind and our destructive impulses. They understood that Odysseus was not a man born with perfect self-control. Instead, he learned it. His story was a blueprint. It taught them, and it can teach us, a profound truth, that genuine self-control is not about having invincible willpower in the moment of temptation. It's about being a strategist in the war against your own worst instincts. It's about having the foresight to protect yourself from your future, weaker self. This is the story of what Odysseus taught the Stoics, and what he can teach you about mastering the temptations that threaten to pull you off course. The blueprint, the hero in the arena. Before we dive into the monsters and the magic, it's worth understanding why a figure like Odysseus was so compelling to these philosophers. The core of Stoic philosophy is the idea of living in accordance with nature. To them, this wasn't about hugging trees, it meant living in accordance with reason. They believed the universe is governed by a divine logic, the logos, and our purpose as humans is to use our own capacity for reason to navigate the world with virtue. The biggest obstacle to this is, and has always been, our own mind, our irrational fears, our unhealthy desires, our impulsive reactions. To a Stoic, freedom wasn't about being able to do whatever you want. That's a false freedom, a slavery to every passing whim. True freedom was freedom from these impulses. It was the inner peace that comes from a mind that cannot be easily disturbed by external events. Now think of Odysseus. Homer's epic poem gives him the epithet politless. It's a word packed with meaning, often translated as much enduring or much suffering. His entire 20-year story is one of relentless hardship. He loses all his men, all his ships, and spends decades battling his way home. For the Stoics, this was the perfect laboratory. It's easy to be calm and rational when life is good. But can you maintain your reason when you're shipwrecked, tempted with immortality, or facing down a man-eating monster? Odysseus was not a perfect Stoic sage. Far from it. He was often ruled by his emotions. His pride and anger sometimes led to utter disaster, as we'll see. But what made him such a powerful example was that he always, eventually, returned to reason. He learned from his mistakes. His suffering wasn't just punishment, it was a curriculum. His journey was a training program in resilience, patience, and strategic thinking. He became a prototype of the Stoic ideal, a person in the arena of life, bloodied and bruised, but using their intellect to endure, to adapt, and ultimately to prevail. He was, as we study in our school, an athlete of life, training himself to endure so-called misfortunes. The Sirens, designing your own discipline. Perhaps the most famous story of Odyssey and self-control, and the one that perfectly encapsulates the Stoic approach to temptation, is his encounter with the Sirens. The Sirens were mythical creatures whose song was so enchanting that no sailor who heard it could resist. They would be lured toward the sound, only to crash their ships on the jagged rocks and be devoured. The sorceress Circe warns Odysseus about them, telling him that their song promises a kind of forbidden knowledge. It's not just a beautiful melody. The Sirens sing to each person exactly what they long to hear, promising to tell them of everything that occurs across the whole earth. A man focused only on willpower might try to tough it out, believing he is stronger than all who came before him. This is the path of arrogance, and it leads to certain death. Odysseus, the master strategist, chooses a different way. He doesn't rely on in-the-moment willpower. He relies on foresight and what we would now call environmental design. He orders his men to plug their ears with beeswax so they will be immune to the call, but Odysseus, driven by his defining curiosity, wants to hear the song and live to tell the tale. So he devises a brilliant plan. He commands his men to tie him securely to the ship's mast, and he gives them one non-negotiable order. No matter how much he begs, screams, or commands them to release him, they are to ignore his pleas and bind him even tighter. As they sail past the island, the inevitable happens. The Siren's song floods his mind, tailored perfectly to his heroic ego. It's irresistible. Odysseus is overcome. He thrashes against the ropes, screaming at his men to set him free. But his crew, deaf to both the Sirens and their captain's maddened cries, simply obey his original, rational command. They hold their course, and as the ship sails safely past, the song fades, and Odysseus' sanity returns. He survived not because he was strong enough to resist the Sirens, but because he was wise enough to know he would be too weak to resist them. This is what modern psychologists call a Ulysses Pact, or a commitment device. It's the decision you make in a moment of clarity to constrain your own future choices, protecting yourself from your future, less rational self. Seen through a Stoic lens, this is a profound lesson in self-governance. It's an illustration of the discipline of assent, choosing what you allow to fully enter and control your mind before the temptation ever appears. You don't fight the urge for the pint of ice cream when you're hungry at midnight. You simply don't buy it at the grocery store. You don't rely on willpower to avoid scrolling social media when a deadline looms. You use an app blocker, or even better, leave your phone in another room. The Sirens episode teaches a humbling and empowering lesson. True self-control is often about admitting your own weakness and then having the wisdom to build a system so that your weakness doesn't lead to failure. The Lotus-Eaters, the temptation of forgetful bliss. Long before the Sirens, Odysseus' crew faced a much subtler and perhaps more insidious temptation, the land of the Lotus-Eaters. After a storm throws them off course, they land on an island whose inhabitants do nothing all day but consume the fruit of the lotus plant. Odysseus sends a few men to scout the island. The inhabitants are friendly and offer them the lotus. The effect is immediate and devastating. All their pain, their grief for fallen comrades, and their ambition to return home simply vanish. They forget their families, their mission, their identity. All they want is to stay on the island forever in a state of blissful, mindless comfort. When the scouts don't return, Odysseus goes to find them and discovers them in a state of euphoric apathy. He has to drag them back to the ship, weeping and protesting, and physically tie them under the benches to get them away from the island and its soul-numbing fruit. For the Stoics, this story is a powerful allegory for the danger of choosing comfort over purpose. The lotus is not a poison that kills the body. It's a poison that kills the will. It represents any form of mindless pleasure or distraction that makes us forget who we are and what we are striving for. The Roman Stoic Seneca wrote extensively about the importance of a life of purpose, even when, especially when, it is difficult. He would have seen the lotus as a perfect symbol of what to avoid. To choose the lotus is to abandon reason and give up the struggle that forges character. In our modern world, the lotus takes many forms. It can be the endless scroll of a social media feed that numbs your mind and leaves you feeling empty. It can be the binge watch of a TV series that consumes your weekend, leaving you behind on your goals. It can be any habit or substance that offers a temporary escape from reality at the cost of your long-term well-being and growth. Odysseus's actions here are crucial. He recognizes that his men have fallen victim to a mental poison, and he forcibly removes them from the source of their corruption. He doesn't argue with them. He acts. He reminds them of their duty, of their goal, their telos, as the Greeks would call it, their ultimate purpose. This is a powerful demonstration of the Stoic discipline of desire. Desiring only what is truly good for you, which means pursuing virtue and purpose, not fleeting pleasure. We're about to journey to the island of a powerful sorceress and into the cave of the monstrous Cyclops, with each episode holding a deeper lesson about our own minds. If you're finding this deep dive into ancient wisdom and modern psychology valuable, you're experiencing the power of applied philosophy. This is the essence of what we do at New Acropolis. We are a school of philosophy in the classical tradition, run entirely by volunteers, with dozens of branches all across the US and around the world, dedicated to living our ideals. If this approach of seeking wisdom together resonates with you, we invite you to subscribe to our channel, and more importantly, to look for a center near you to continue this journey in a community of fellow seekers. Now let's get to the crucial next part of the journey. Calypso's Island, choosing a mortal life over an immortal paradise. After countless other trials, Odysseus washes ashore on the island of Ogygia, utterly alone. He is the sole survivor of his expedition. He is found by the beautiful nymph Calypso. She falls in love with him and keeps him on her island, a prisoner in paradise. For 7 long years, Odysseus lives in a world most would consider a dream. Calypso's island is a utopia. He wants for nothing, and Calypso makes him the ultimate offer. If he agrees to stay with her, she will make him immortal and ageless. He will never suffer, never grow old, never die. He would be a god. Yet every single day, Odysseus walks to the shore, looks out over the endless sea and weeps. He weeps for his mortal wife, Penelope. He weeps for his son, Telemachus, who he barely knows. He weeps for his home, his kingdom, and his life of duty, struggle, and meaning. Finally, the gods command Calypso to release him. She makes her offer one last time, asking him why on earth he would choose a life of hardship and certain death with a mortal woman over an eternity of bliss with a goddess. Odysseus's reply is one of the most profound statements in all of Western literature, and it is pure pre-Stoic wisdom. He acknowledges that his wife could never compare to Calypso's divine beauty. But then he says, and I'm paraphrasing Homer here, "And yet all my days I pine to be home, and if a god should wreck me again on the sea, I will endure it, with a heart in my breast that is patient of sorrow. For I have already suffered and labored so much. Let this be added to the count." He chooses a finite, difficult, suffering-filled life over an infinite, easy, pleasure-filled one. He chooses duty over pleasure. He chooses meaning over immortality. The Stoics would have seen this as the ultimate victory of reason. They believed life's meaning is not found in avoiding suffering, but in enduring it virtuously. Suffering is the raw material of character. To choose Calypso's offer would be to choose a pointless existence. A life without struggle is a life without growth. A life without an end has no urgency, no purpose, no stakes. Odysseus's choice affirms a core Stoic belief. The value of life is determined by its quality, its virtue, not its quantity or comfort. This is a powerful lesson for our modern age, which is so often obsessed with chasing comfort. We are constantly sold versions of Calypso's Island, the promise of a life without friction, without pain, without difficulty. Odysseus teaches us the opposite. He teaches that happiness is found not in the absence of responsibility, but in the willing acceptance of it. It is found in having a purpose so strong that you would trade paradise for the chance to pursue it. The question Calypso's Island poses to all of us is, what is your Ithaca? What is the purpose, the duty, the love that you would refuse immortality for. The Cyclops and the beggar, the duality of self-control. Odysseus's journey is not just a highlight reel of perfect Stoic moments. What makes him such a compelling model is that he is also a model of failure. Nowhere is this duality, the tension between brilliant restraint and disastrous ego, more clear than in his encounters with the Cyclops Polyphemus and his later disguise as a beggar. First, the Cyclops. Trapped in the giant's cave, Odysseus devises a brilliant, multi-step plan. He gets the monster drunk on potent wine. Once Polyphemus is asleep, Odysseus and his men drive a sharpened, fiery stake into his single eye. Here, Odysseus demonstrates incredible foresight. He knows that if they kill the Cyclops, they will be trapped forever by the massive boulder blocking the entrance. By only blinding him, he ensures the giant will have to move the boulder himself to let his sheep out to pasture, creating their window of escape. It's a masterclass in strategic patience. But then, as they are sailing away to safety, Odysseus' self-control shatters. High on his own cleverness and victory, he cannot resist the urge to taunt the blinded, roaring giant. His ego takes over. He yells back at the shore, boasting. His men beg him to stop, but he won't. Then, in the ultimate act of hubris, he shouts his real name. "If anyone asks who blinded you, tell them it was Odysseus, son of Laertes from Ithaca." This is a catastrophic failure of self-mastery. By revealing his name, he gives the Cyclops' father, the sea god Poseidon, a direct target. This single impulsive act of pride sets in motion the sea god's wrath, which leads to another 10 years of suffering and the death of all his remaining men. The Stoics would see this as a textbook example of how the passion of pride can undo the most brilliant work of reason. Now contrast this with the man who arrives in Ithaca a decade later. This is a changed Odysseus. He returns disguised as a frail, anonymous old beggar. He enters his own home and is subjected to the ultimate humiliation by the arrogant suitors who have overrun his palace. They mock him, they insult him, one even hurls a stool at him. The Odysseus who taunted the Cyclops would have exploded in a blaze of fury. But the Odysseus who has endured 10 more years of suffering does something extraordinary. He stands there and takes it. Homer tells us he stood firm as a rock, his heart filled with dark thoughts, but he remained silent, biding his time. This is the Stoic virtue of Carteria, patient endurance in its purest form. It's not passive suffering, it's an active, deliberate choice to endure hardship for a worthy purpose. His goal is not the short-term satisfaction of lashing out. His goal is the long-term restoration of his kingdom. He endures the humiliation, gathers information, and waits for the strategically perfect moment to reveal himself and act. The journey from the Cyclops' cave to the Hall of Ithaca is the journey of a man learning to master his own ego. He learned the hard way that a single moment of uncontrolled pride can cost you everything, while enduring humiliation with a purpose can win you back your world. The Stoic Toolkit, from myth to modern practice. Odysseus' journey is more than an epic story, it's a practical manual for living. The principles that allowed him to survive monsters and outwit goddesses are the same principles that can help us master our own lives. As we study in our school, philosophy is not about abstract theories, but about practical tools for living better. Principle 1. Architect your life, don't just live it. The most enduring lesson from the Sirens is that the highest form of self-discipline is environmental design. Instead of relying on willpower to fight the same battles every single day, you use foresight to remove the battle altogether. This is the Ulysses Pact. If you want to eat healthier, the battle is won or lost at the grocery store, not in your kitchen at 10 p.m. If you want to be more focused, the battle is won by putting your phone in a different room before you start working. If you want to save more money, automate a transfer to your savings account the day you get paid. Take an audit of your goals and your temptations. For every goal, ask yourself, how can I make the right choice the easiest choice and the wrong choice the hardest one? That is how you tie yourself to the mast. Principle 2. Choose purposeful hardship over mindless comfort. Odysseus' rejection of Calypso's immortality and his rescue of his men from the Lotus-Eaters both point to a fundamental truth. A meaningful life is built on purposeful struggle, not the avoidance of pain. The Stoics saw challenges not as bugs in the system, but as features. They are the curriculum of life. Reframe your relationship with difficulty. When you face a setback, a tough project at work, a conflict in a relationship, a personal failure, the Odyssean Stoic mindset is to see it as the path to your growth. That difficult project isn't just a source of stress, it's an opportunity to forge resilience. That hard conversation isn't just a risk, it's a chance to build courage. Consciously choose the harder path when it aligns with your purpose. See the struggle not as a sign that you should quit, but as a sign that what you're doing matters. Principle 3. Master the power of strategic silence. The contrast between Odysseus taunting the Cyclops and Odysseus enduring the taunts of the suitors reveals a profound journey toward emotional mastery. The wise Odysseus learned that power is often found in patient, strategic silence. In our hyper-reactive world, a world of instant replies, hot takes, and constant outrage, the impulse is to respond to everything immediately. The lesson from Odysseus the beggar is to practice the strategic pause. When you feel a powerful emotional reaction, anger from a critical email, pride from a compliment, fear from bad news, do not act on it immediately. Take a breath, take a walk, sleep on it. In that space between stimulus and response lies your power. This isn't about suppressing your emotions. It's about refusing to be a slave to them. Before you react, ask yourself, will responding to this right now in this state serve my long-term goal? The answer is almost always no. The Stoic philosophers looked back to a warrior king, not because he was perfect, but because he was human. Odysseus was not a sage in a tranquil garden. He was a man thrown into the meat grinder of life, forced to confront temptation, despair, ego, and loss. His journey became their proof of concept. It showed that reason, endurance, and foresight were not just abstract ideals, but practical, battle-tested tools for survival. He taught them that self-mastery is not a single, heroic act of willpower. It is 1,000 small, strategic decisions made in moments of clarity. It is the wisdom to prepare for your weakness, the courage to choose a meaningful struggle over an easy escape, and the patience to endure humiliation for a higher purpose. Odysseus shows us that we will all face monsters. Some will be external, but the most dangerous monsters are the ones that live within us. Our own pride, our own apathy, our own uncontrolled impulses. The journey home is long for all of us. The timeless wisdom of Odysseus, filtered through the lens of the Stoics, offers us a map. It doesn't promise a safe or easy passage, but it promises something far better, the strength to endure the storm. If these lessons from the ancient world resonate with you, subscribe for more wisdom on how to live a stronger, more meaningful life. As we learn at New Acropolis, a school of philosophy run by volunteers with branches across the country, philosophy is a practice in a way of reclaiming the peace and purpose that is rightfully yours. And now let us know in the comments, which temptation, which siren in your own life is the hardest for you to sail past? Let your answer be a reminder to yourself and an inspiration to others that we are not the victims of our impulses, but can learn to be the masters of our minds. Thank you for watching.